That wasn't the only problem. The place wasn't exactly thriving with people. Not many people had access to teleporters in the first place. Only green teleporters the public were able to use, and they were strictly monitored by the company that owned them. Meaning the only people that would be around here would be travelers. With no people around and only a beast, Vorden was stuck with his one ability, and it would only last him 24 hours. Then a thought came to Vorden's mind. Quinn. The portal was unable to send you to a pinpoint location, but it did put you in the same general area, at least within 10 miles of each other. Still, 10 miles was a great distance to cover, and with the chance of the beast being around every corner, it would be hard to find Quinn. For now, Vorden would look for a portal back to the academy while also searching for Quinn. Somewhere on the same planet, Quinn had also arrived. His heart was beating rapidly as it was the first time he had experienced such a thing. "Peter, what the hell was that?" Quinn thought. "Damn it, he must have pushed me through the portal. Where am I?" As Quinn looked around, he could see the similar buildings around him all crumbled, torn, and fallen down. The place looked like a city had once existed, but had been left behind for years. However, there was one saving grace about the whole thing. On the planet it was currently nighttime, meaning Quinn didn't feel weak and had a better chance of surviving. However, before Quinn had even moved from the spot he was in, he spotted something from the corner of his eye. He was standing in the middle of a street, surrounded by crumbled buildings on both sides, but whatever was moving around was quick and was using the buildings as cover. Quinn tried to follow whatever it was with his eyes, but it would constantly move around until it had eventually stopped just underneath a pile of rubble from one of the buildings. In the movies, this is where the person would go check it out, Quinn thought, but there was no way he was going to do that. He was on an unknown planet and all alone, and whatever it was clear it didn't want him to see it. Quinn started to back away, making sure to keep an eye on where he last saw the figure. Then, when he was a safe enough distance away, he finally turned around. In that instant, a sound could be heard from behind. Quinn immediately turned around and could see a horrible figure running towards him. It clearly wasn't an ordinary animal, and something he had only ever seen in books and TV. It was a beast. Suddenly, Quinn could hear the sounds of something scurrying towards him at an amazing speed. As he turned, the beast was now in full sight. It was the same size as a large dog, with the head of a rodent, black in color and running on all fours. He would have said it looked like a giant rat. However, its body parts were muscular around its arms, while its body remained incredibly thin, so much so that the outline of its ribs could be seen. When the creature was a few feet away, it leapt in the air, and claws appeared from the creature's 2 front limbs. Quinn, almost out of instinct, swiped his hand, letting out a blood swipe. The attack managed to hit the beast and sent it flying back. The attack had caused a large cut to appear on the creature's stomach, and black blood started to leak from the wound. While the beast was taking the time to recover, Quinn decided to use his inspect skill. Name, Rattaclaw. Basic tier beast. HP, ? Unlike with humans, when Quinn used the status screen, it would show their HP and blood type, but in this case, he had only received a name and the level of the beast. Seeing the tier of the beast, though, Quinn started to feel a little less frightened. He was in an unknown place, and just because the beast was small in size didn't mean it was a low tier. However, something like the Rattaclaw, even Quinn should be able to deal with it. The Rattaclaw had recovered and charged straight for Quinn once again. Seeing how the blood swipe was effective, he waited for the beast to get close once again. Blood swipe! But Quinn had underestimated the speed and the responsiveness of the Rattaclaw. It had learned from last time what to look out for and jumped to the side, avoiding the attack. Then it dashed forward, increasing its speed, and jumped out at Quinn. Just in time, Quinn had managed to shove his gauntlet into the mouth of the beast. As its 2 big teeth clomped down on the gauntlet, he heard a creaking noise. Defense 1. Durability of weapon has decreased by 50%. Strength has fallen to 3. You little crap, get off me! Quinn shouted as he started swinging his arm, trying to shake the beast off, but the beast had clomped down hard, refusing to let go. With the beast stuck to his arm, it was too dangerous for him to use blood swipe, and too close for him to perform a hammer strike. All that was left was to do it the old-fashioned way. Quinn then started to repeatedly pound the beast on its head with his other hand. With each blow, black blood would gush out of the beast. The blows were powerful and damaging to the beast. and with each strike, the grip started to loosen. "If you had just stayed away, you could have lived," Quinn shouted as he continued to punch the beast, until finally its grip had come loose and it had fallen to the ground. Quinn looked like he had just come off the movie off a horror set. His arms and clothes were now completely covered in black blood, but he didn't care, for a message had appeared bearing great news. "Basic tier beast Rattaclaw has been defeated. 100 EXP points gained. First basic tier beast killed. Bonus EXP awarded. 200 EXP. First time killing Rattaclaw. Bonus EXP awarded. 100 EXP. 880 of 800 EXP. Multiple notifications had been received at once, and everything came as quite a shock to him. Not only did he receive more EXP for killing a beast compared to fighting against a human, but he also received bonus points too. Similar to when he faced a new power level for the first time, he had gained bonus points for killing a basic tier, as well as bonus points for killing this specific beast for the first time as well. In a way, beasts were a goldmine for his system. "Congratulations, you are now level 5. Race, Halfling. HP, 30 of 30. 40 of 1600 EXP. Strength, 13, 2. Agility, 15. Stamina, 12. Leveling up had given Quinn 1 extra stat point. Looking at his stats now, he decided to put the stat point into Strength. Strength, 14, 2. The reason for this was the skill Hammer Strike. It needed a total of 15 strength to perform. While he had the gauntlets on, they gave him an extra bonus of 3 strength, but when the Rattaclaw had damaged the gauntlets, the strength dropped to 2. If his gauntlets were to be destroyed, then he would no longer be able to perform Hammer Strike correctly. So first, Quinn decided he would get his strength up to 15 before focusing on stamina and agility. But the system still had one more surprise for him. New skill unlocked. Blood Spray. Blood Spray. The user's palm must be open to perform this skill. From the user's palm, a spray of blood pellets will be realized, spreading out covering a wide range. The closer the attack is to its target, the more damage it will do. Cost, -5 HP. The skill reminded Quinn of a shotgun he used to watch from the old movies, where the small pellets would spread out hitting multiple targets. The problem was the cost of the skill. 5 HP was a huge amount, and even with his blood bank, Quinn would have to be careful when using it. The plus side was that it was a skill designed to hit more than one opponent. If Quinn had Layla around, he would like to test the blood spray out, but he didn't know how long he would be stuck here, so it was best to reserve his HP and as much blood as possible. Quinn then walked up to the dead beast on the ground. He had punched the creature so hard in the skull it was indented, and blood was leaking everywhere. Looking at the black blood, it didn't seem appetizing at all. He wasn't drawn to it like regular human blood, and it didn't give off a sweet fragrance either. Still, there might come a time where Quinn was required to drink it, so he needed to test it out. Inspect. Rattaclaw blood. If blood is consumed, is poisonous to the body. -1 HP for every millimeter of blood consumed. It was expected. The signs were a giveaway that his body was telling him to stay away. I wonder why my body only accepts human blood. The system had been oddly specific when his body started to require blood. This made Quinn think that even the blood of animals wouldn't work, even though some were red in color just like humans. Of course, there was one person who did know the answers behind everything, and that was the blonde man in the video. The last thing he needed to do was rip or cut the body open and look for the beast core inside. It was a small crystal located in a different part of the body, depending on the beast. This could be used to either create more beast weapons and armor, or even be sold for credits. Both of these would be a big bonus for him. Suddenly, though, the sound of something running was heard again, as Quinn looked up, the sight of 10 Rattaclaws running in his direction. Although basic tier creatures were weak, it was odd for them to travel alone, and Quinn had just gotten lucky. After struggling to face just against one, he knew he had no chance against 10. All he could do was run. He ran down the empty street, not knowing where he was heading. But the Rattaclaws were fast and would soon catch up. That's when Quinn spotted a building, one that was far less damaged than the others. He went inside, but the space was still too large. He then spotted a stairway to his right nearby. After quickly running up the stairway and reaching the first platform, he stopped and turned. He knew he had no choice but to fight back. The staircase was narrower than the rooms, and he had the high ground. With his palm open facing downward, he was ready. Time to test you out.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.